I'll speak to some Ghanaians who are now, of course, they've been forced to return home few months ago, and this is due to the ongoing war in Sudan. Many of us have heard about this, but the Global Union of Ghanaian Scholars is issuing a statement pointing out that it is deeply concerned about the plight of these Ghanaian students from Sudan. The students who were pursuing their various dreams and education abroad are now facing uncertainty and also some challenges when it comes to their academic progression. So lived experience is what we're hearing about today as I bring to you Naima Abdul Aziz, a Ghanaian student Union of Sudan. She is the chair lady there, and also Aisha Mustafa supporting the chair lady of Ghanaian students in Sudan. Thank you, ladies, for joining us in studio. So let's start off by hearing from the chairperson. You are the chairperson, obviously, and it must have been a trying time for your members, because I recall I was at the Kotoka International Airport when the first batch of students arrived. The experiences they were sharing was very traumatic. And now you are home, but you're not able to get academic progression. What's been the challenge over the period, and what's been the problem from your perspective?
So, some of the challenges majority of us are facing is one, frustration. Frustration. We were frustrated during the war. We were brought home safely, and up till now, we are hoping, continuous students are hoping to be integrated into the universities in Ghana so they can continue their education, because education really matters in this life.
I see. Let's try and personalize the story. In your case, for instance, where did you leave off? Because I understand most of you are medical students there in Sudan. Is that the case with you as well? So you were almost ending? What's your story?
I graduated, but I didn't get my certificate.
From the school?
Yes, please.
Is it the case that you're not able to reach the school, get them to send it over?
Yes, okay. Ongoing.
Right.
But when the war happens, everything came to a cease. So as at now, we are pleading with our government to help integrate the new students, and those who can help us get our certificates.
I see. I'll come back to you on what the authorities told you when you came back home. But is that the same story you have? Were you also a medical student, or which course were you studying in school back then?
Okay, so I'm a medical student.
Right.
I completed 4th year medical school.
Okay.
So going to 5th year before the war happened.
Okay.
So first of all, my name is Aisha.
And you're supposed to do how many years in all?
6 years.
6. Okay, so you had 2 more to go. Yes.
Yes, please. So with that, with the question you directed to Naima, yes, as Naima said, we are really frustrated, and there are some triggers or some questions that are asked by our families, by our friends, and then seeing friends going to school whilst you are home, you are not working, there's nothing that is done, and then there is no hope, in as much as the government has promised to reintegrate us into the Ghanaian school system, but then we haven't had any documented promise or facts, and then there are no dates given, nothing. It's just a verbal promise, and we don't know where it will take us to and when actions will be taken.
When you were, being brought back home, what assurances were you given? Were you taking through some processes? Were you assured? Was there any form of documentation, at least, just to promise you on what the next line of action was?
The promises were all verbal.
Okay.
So up till now, it's been almost 6 months now since we entered Ghana. We arrived on the 2nd of April.
Okay.
May,
right.
So it's 5 months and I think 24 days now. So if something should happen, some institutions have started. So at least there should be hope. There should be any form of a letter or information telling us that, so the Ghanaian students who were brought back home,
this is the way forward.
This is the way forward.
Right.
But nothing, everything.
Absolutely nothing. Have you tried reaching out to the authorities who brought you back?
Yes, we wrote letters.
Right. Oh, okay. And is there a response to the letters?
We've had some responses. So some of the letters were directed to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So upon arrival, we met the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they gave us the initial promise of the reintegration process. So we wrote a letter to them. That's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We also wrote a letter in collaboration with the Ghanaian Global Union of Ghanaian Scholars. We wrote a letter in collaboration with them to the Ministry of Education and the Educational Committee of Parliament.
Right.
We also wrote a letter to His Excellency the Vice President, of which we haven't had any response yet. So we've written numerous letters, but to no avail.
So not even a single committee or institution responded to you, or at least you got some responses?
The only response we got was from the Director of Tertiary Education in Ghana here, Dr. Yaira. He gave us a verbal promise of reintegrating us into the private universities, of which we cannot afford, honestly.
I see. So the plan is to move you into private universities. That's not on paper yet, but at least the verbal assurance that you're giving. What's the plan? To have all the medical students move into these private institutions? What's the plan?
If we could afford these prices or the fees for private institutions, you wouldn't go for the scholarships. So if we are pleading for them to integrate us, please not to a private institution.
So let's get this clear. Most of your members, and how many are you in terms of the numbers?
We are 70,
right.
46 undergraduates, 22 graduates, 2 master students.
So over 70 students. Most of you, from the understanding and what you're telling me, you're on scholarship. So it's not as though you are the ones funding the tuition and you know, perhaps you're boarding there.
Yes.
All of us are on scholarship. None of us went there to pay for our fees. It was a scholarship program. So that's how come we left there. Trust me, if we had the money, we wouldn't have gone there.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's it.
How has life been? You know, sitting home and watching your colleagues go to school. You say it's traumatic.
Very traumatic. Sometimes we feel like we are failures because, yes, we've had verbal promises, but when are we starting? Has there been any dates? Nothing. So we don't know whether we will actually be going back to school or not. So sometimes we feel like failures because trust me, personalizing it, going to medical school was like a dream come true for myself and to my family.
Yeah.
So coming back without any certificates is really devastating.
If you had the second opportunity, would you go back to Sudan?
Well, if it was a scholarship, yes, I would. But knowing that this war and everything, I wouldn't have. Because Sudanese people are really nice people, honestly, and I really love them. But then the war just made everything bad. Yeah.
Such a trying moment for these students. We'll be trying to get some answers, but also joining us via Zoom now is Lord Mark Mensah, President of the Union. And you've been working out there in the UK, trying to support your counterparts who have now returned to Ghana. You started the process when they were in Sudan, I recall speaking to you. But now, what's the way forward? Are you making any further attempts to reach out to government, the ministry perhaps, to get some solution? We're unable to hear you. Just unmute so we can hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Hello, Bless. How are you doing? Thanks for having me here, and good evening to your listeners, to wherever they are. It's a frustrating, like you heard the lady rightly said there. You asked a question that I was cringing here, that if they have the opportunity to go back to Sudan, would they go? I was shocked hearing, and her response was that she will go back. That all you can see there is desperation. And she explained what the situation is like. Frustration, coming out of a war situation with the trauma and the disappointment, and then staying home for all these whiles. The government is doing nothing. Bless, we had this conversation before, and I remember telling you that what we need is a policy that in case anything happened to international students and scholars abroad, and they're coming back to the country, what is the policy? What do we have to do for them? The government needs to have a clear-cut procedure and processes that will take them through. It has happened before in Ukraine, so at least we have some templates Like we have a template. How was these guys from Sudan, our students from Sudan, Ukraine, how were they integrated into the system? So we have the template. So why can't we do the same for those who are coming from Sudan? And by the way, when they met the tertiary, the head of the tertiary institutions from the Ministry of Education, all they are speaking about or talking about is medical students. But from Sudan, they have engineers, they have also other accountants or people pursuing other courses. And we have to look across board. We will not take some of them to institutions and leave them. So that is where we are right now.
Is it the case that there's difficulty in trying to reach the very same people who helped to do the repatriation? You were very quick, very effective on that score. I recall the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs speaking to us, addressing the President, saying that coordination happened because they had, connectivity, they were communicating with your group. So how come that's no longer happening after we had the people come back home?
Blaise, I'm not sleeping. You remember when we had this conversation? We mobilized and helped them inside Sudan. We had to send money to them, and then they were asked to come to the borders before the government will evacuate them. So we appreciate the government taking them or repatriating them to Ghana. But we did all those cooperation or those hard work, getting them money to them, then them traveling through this difficult bombing and all these bullets, war zone, and then they got to Ethiopia. Finally, you took them gracefully back to Ghana. Now, for all these years, for all these months, we have tried everything, contacting the government, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and nobody's responding. Some of them went recently, I think 2 weeks ago, to meet the minister or ministry of minister responsible for tertiary institutions. Again, they were promised verbally. Nothing has been said or written formally, and no action has been taken so far. And we're talking about young lives. These are the future leaders of our country, right? And you bring them back home and then leave them like that. It's so heartbreaking.
Finally, what will be the next step? Would you try another attempt just to try and reach out, try and get some solutions? Because speaking to these young girls, the essence is we want to get back into the classrooms, at least for those who are almost finishing school, they want to get into the medical practice. So what's the next line of action?
The next line of action is that we are still going to push. We are still going to, pursue our agenda or our plan, or making sure that the government here or adhere to our plea on behalf of these young people. They are young and they are desperate, they are frustrated, they are traumatized, and they need to go back to the classroom. Like I said earlier on, we have done it before, and so we'll continue to do that. We wrote to the minister again 2 days ago, yesterday. We have written clearly and we made recommendations on what exactly needed doing for these young people. And so we are hoping that we will, get some positive response from them. Until that, we'll keep pushing until we find the right button to press to make sure that the government and the stakeholders involved listen to the cry of these young people who are desperately in need of support and help going back to the classroom and integrating back into the system.
Not a very good time. I can imagine the trauma they are all going through, but we'll be monitoring the efforts, and kudos to you as well. We wait to see what the outcome will be. Lord Mark Mensah.
Plus, we are not resting at all. Myself, I'm not sleeping. I get phone calls every day, and as you can listen to them say, cry. They cry on the phone every time. And as a father, I feel it. I feel the pain. I feel their, and something needs to be done. So we are pleading with you as well, the media. If you can help us in any way at all, please do your best. Press those buttons, and let's all work together and make sure that the government immediately, as a matter of urgency, do something and support these ladies and gentle men back to the classroom so that they can pursue their dreams and visions for the future.
Yeah, I believe many within the ministries are watching us now. All we need is the help that these young girls and the others out there are appealing for. We're wrapping up. Do you have any message for the authorities? What would that be? Let me start off with you.
Okay, so I would like to thank them for the successful evacuation process. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Embassy of Ghana in Cairo and in Ethiopia,
Right.
the Global Union of Ghanaian Scholars are doing very well for us, and we are really, really appreciative of them. Thank you very much for all the support, and we are pleading on you, the government of Ghana, His Excellency the Vice President, please come to our aid. We need, as Dr. Lord Mark Mesa mentioned, we are the future leaders, and then we cannot quit. We cannot quit, so please help us go back to school. Thank you.
For you? Your message?
He has said
Yeah.
everything. So all what we are pleading is we have hope for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So please, the government should come to our aid. We want to go back to school.
I see. I see that you're down, but of course we can only urge you that there is, of course, some hope coming through. We wait on the authorities to see what the outcome